everyone, welcome to a long overdue Empties video. Before I start, I just want to have a quick chat about project panning and my project pans, since I've more or less abandoned all of them. The only one that is still going on that's a traditional project pan is my Gilmore Girls project pan. That finale will be in October. From here on out, I'm not planning on doing any formal project pans unless they are a collab like the Gilmore Girls project pan was. I've been really burnt out by it. I have a lot of makeup and I've learned a lot from project panning because I did it for so many years and I worked really hard at it, and I just feel like I am not learning anything new. And I've touched on this a little bit before, so for some of you this may not be new information, but I've had a lot of people asking about where all my project pans have gone and why I'm not updating them anymore, and it's partially because I just decided to put them into empties, and I just felt like there was less of an interest overall in dedicated project pans. I can use my products like I normally would with a little less pressure, no deadlines, and then I can talk about them in empties, and it's been a little bit more relaxing for me that way. Plus I've been decluttering on my own as well, so I feel like I'm in a pretty good place. I'm managing things fairly well. I'm still being very smart about my purchases with the exception of eyeshadow. That's a problem for another day, but I'm still using up products just in a different way. And there are other projects I have that are similar to project pans that I'm still doing, like my hashtag 365 days of samples, my Pan That palette, my project pan porn, which is eyeshadow based, which kind of makes sense. So long story short, it's just working better for me right now, but I wanted to make sure you knew what was going on. So there are a few things from my running on Empties project pan that I have to talk about. I am doing my best to remember to throw my empty makeup products into this bag here. I have thrown out a few things. There have been a few things that I've decluttered and depotted, like I got rid of my Naked Smoky palette from Urban Decay as well as my Vice 2 palette. I just depotted Shell Shock, the silver from Vice 2, and Dirty Sweet from the Naked Smoky palette. Those are the only two shadows I kept. I popped them in a Z palette, and the palettes are gone. I've done little decluttering projects like that when the mood strikes me. And also for my empties, I'm going to be focusing on makeup because I know that's what most people are interested in. So there might be a few random other things like some shampoo or skincare or something, but in general I'm keeping it mostly to makeup or makeup adjacent products because I felt like, okay, I use a bunch of like Garnier micellar water. There's no point in me talking about that every month. It serves no purpose in my opinion unless it changes. Like if all of a sudden I start using something else, then that might be notable, but if I'm still using the same thing. Anyway, that's just my big rambly explanation. Let's get into the empties. All right, so this is sort of what I mean by makeup adjacent. You've all heard me talk about the Cinema Secrets brush cleaner many times. This is my favorite thing to use to clean my brushes. It's the only thing I really enjoy using to clean my brushes because it's so quick and it's so easy. You know, I have the little silver tin and I fill it full of the liquid and I dip my brushes in and I swirl it around a paper towel and my brushes are clean in seconds and they dry almost instantly. It's just one of the best things that I have to have on hand because there's absolutely nothing like clean makeup brushes, especially clean eyeshadow brushes. I tend to use a ton, and so I get them really dirty really fast, and this is an absolute lifesaver. So I just want to keep raving about this stuff because it really does work. I finished a really old bottle of the Urban Decay All-Nighter Setting Spray. So when they were changing the packaging from this to the newer one, like the black bottle, I bought a few bottles of this one and I just haven't been using it as much as I was using it before. I still use my setting sprays. Sometimes I might even shower with them, but I just wasn't reaching for this one that much. I feel like it has declined in quality, probably because it's so old. I shouldn't have bought so many backups, but it was on sale, it was cheap, and I thought, you know, this is something that I'm using a lot of, and it's just never a good idea. It's just something that I just need to not do because I have one more left. That's this old type, and it's just not working as well. See, normally when I was using the all-nighter setting spray, I would spray it on my face and my makeup would stay locked in. And lately when I've been using it, I don't have the same effect. Like I feel like Before, I would spray my face, and once everything dried, like I could touch my face and I wouldn't move makeup around and things would stay on. And now when I use this stuff, it's just not locking things in. Stuff's still sliding around. Stuff is creasing that never used to crease. Stuff is fading that never used to fade. So I just need to finish the other bottle and get the new one. Get a new bottle of the stuff instead of using something that's fairly old at this point. I have a couple of face primers. Some are deluxe size samples and I have one full size. This is from The Ordinary. This is the High Adherence Silicone Primer. It's a high adherence blurring surface smoother and primer. So this was a good primer. It didn't blow me away. It's a fairly heavy silicone primer. And if you've ever used a silicone primer, you'll know what I mean. It just sort of sits on the skin, but it does help to blur things out because will fill in the pores on your face. And I like the way that it worked with a bunch of different foundations, because whenever I'm using a primer, I like to try it with different things. And I used it with a bunch of foundations that I like, some that I didn't like, and it was a good primer. It just wasn't something that worked as well for me like other things. I'm always comparing to things that I do like, and this primer really made me miss the Makeup Forever Hydrating Primer. That one I felt like is a really good everyday primer, sort of similar to the Laura Mercier Blemishless Primer, which has like that lotiony consistency and it's not too heavy or thick. There's some primers that, especially if they have a lot of silicone in it, they just feel so heavy on my skin, and when I put foundation then on top of it, it just feels like I have a lot of product on my face as opposed to just feeling like skin. I just feel like there's a noticeable difference for me when a primer starts to sink into my skin a little bit and I don't just feel it sitting on top. So this was good, especially, you know, for the price. You can't go wrong with that, although The Ordinary is a little questionable to me right now, but the product itself was good. I just won't be repurchasing it. A somewhat similar primer, the Urban Decay Optical Illusion Complexion Primer. This is one of those pore filling primers. I actually have another one of those as well, this Dr. Brandt one. But I did not like this one because it just sat on my skin and I had a really hard time working with it. It was a very stiff product and I felt like I couldn't smooth it on my face easily, that I just wasn't getting that smooth sort of texture, which I prefer in a primer. And I really like to prime my skin because I find that I break out otherwise, and I felt like I had to use a ton of this. And I know it's just a sample size, but I felt like I had to use like 3-4 pumps and then really work it, and even still it just wouldn't move all over my face like I wanted it to. So it wasn't a very impressive primer. I'm glad I got to try it though, because I always want to try the Urban Decay Complexion products, and I was hoping it was really going to work well with the Naked Skin foundation, and it did not. The Dr. Brandt Pores No More Pore Refining Primer is a very thick primer, but it really does exactly what it says it's going to do. I either use it with my fingers and really pat it in. So I sometimes, depending on the day, my pores will be really noticeable in this area. And I like to just make sure I pat it in. Otherwise, I like to use a brush, one of those little pointed foundation brushes, those ones that you get sometimes in sets and you're like, oh, what am I gonna do with this? I like to paint it on, basically, and just make sure that a light layer gets all over my face. It's fairly slick, but it doesn't leave my face feeling greasy unless I'm having a particularly oily face day. So I have combination skin, and sometimes if my like T-zone, for example, is pretty oily, then this will slip around a little bit and then foundation won't last. And lastly, the Becca Velvet Blurring Primer. This thing was really weird. It was very liquidy when I pumped it out. And then when I started to blend it into my skin, it felt sort of powdery. And it almost completely disappeared. Like I'd take a pump and go to spread it into my face and it was like it did nothing. Now I couldn't really feel it on my skin, which was nice, but I also felt like it didn't do anything. Like it's supposed to be a blurring primer and I definitely didn't notice any blurring, as opposed to like the Dr. Brandt Pores No More, which really sort of hides those areas. Even though it says it's a velvet blurring primer, I wasn't expecting it to go from liquid to powder. So it was very weird. And I used it with a couple different foundations and none of them seemed to really work well with it and at least give me like good skin. I always look to see what combination of things is going to make my skin look the best, and this one just didn't impress me. I feel like I'm not being very descriptive tonight. I feel a little off my game. But anyway, I have 3 foundations that I finished. So the first one I have is from Tarte. This is the Amazonian Clay 12 Hour Full Coverage Foundation. This is a foundation I had repurchased a couple of times. This was one of my go-tos for the winter months when I needed something a little bit more full coverage, or just wanted something a little bit more full coverage that would really hide all of that winter redness, and I always get sick in the winter time, and it would just cover all that stuff up. And I still really enjoyed using this foundation. I'm just not purchasing from Tarte. So while I did enjoy this foundation and had repurchased it a few times because I liked the way that it worked with my skin, it is definitely something that can be replaced by other products. I finished the Cover FX Natural Finish Oil-Free Foundation. My foundation shade in the Tarte foundation, by the way, is Fair Beige, and this shade I had was N0, so Neutral Zero. Now, this one I didn't wear straight on its own. I used it as a mixing product mostly, and I really liked it that way. I really want to get one of the P versions, which is pink, so more cool undertones. They have a P10, which is what I think could be a pretty good winter shade for me. Now, this is definitely a natural finish foundation, and where I sometimes can get oily, the oily spots on my face would be really emphasized by this foundation, and I didn't find that it wore that well, in that certain spots would be oily and some spots I felt like it clung to my dry patches a little bit. Now, if I put more of a hydrating base on underneath, it definitely did help with that, but then I was also mixing it with other things as well, so maybe it was some of those other more mattifying foundations that was causing some of the dryness and some of the issues. So it's going to be a little hard to tell. I want to get a sample of some of the P shades, maybe P10 or P20 or both, and see how that works and wear it just on its own and see how it wears. It's really hard to talk about the wear time of a foundation unless you wear it on its own, and just that. If you start powdering things and you're using a bunch of concealers and mixing it with other products, you don't know what is doing the good things and what is doing the bad things. Another foundation I finished is from CoverGirl. This is the Clean Foundation. This is 105 Ivory. This is a really nice foundation. I just don't like the smell. It is very perfumey. And while I did have sort of throwbacks doing my makeup in my mother's bathroom, it's a smell that lingers and you can continuously smell it, and it would stick to my makeup brushes. Even using the Cinema Secrets brush cleaner, which has like a little bit of like a vanilla scent, I could still smell a little bit of this foundation, which is this floral. There's no other way to describe it besides old lady floral, and you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. And it just is so overpowering, and it doesn't need to be scented. I don't get it because I have another one, same bottle, blue cap, that's not scented, and it's actually even a slightly different shade. This one is a little bit darker, which actually worked for me, where I got more of a color, like half of a color, and I like the way that this looked on my skin. I like the way that it wore. I felt like it was a really good foundation, and it's like $5 Canadian. I just want it, but I don't want the smell. So the smell is the only reason why I won't be repurchasing it. Otherwise, I definitely would have, because it is a really beautiful medium coverage foundation. It camouflages everything. It works so beautifully with any of like those pore filling primers, like the Dr. Brandt primer was definitely my favorite thing to pair with this, and it just gave my skin such a smooth, flawless looking finish, but it just looked like skin. It wasn't like I had caked on a bunch of foundation or had a mask on. So I really liked this, and I'm really disappointed in the scent. If you can handle scents and you are looking for a really affordable foundation option for a medium coverage, flawless looking skin, give the CoverGirl Clean a shot. It's a fairly old product in that it's been around for many years, and I feel like a lot of people overlook it because of that, but it really is good. It's just the scent sucks. I have an eyebrow pencil from L'Oreal. This is the Brow Stylist Definer. This is, or was, a very, very thin brow pencil. It reminded me a tiny bit of the Brow Wiz, but I think that's gonna be the thing everyone's going to compare brow pencils to. Got the spoolie on one side. I did find that it wasn't that pigmented and it wouldn't grip just to my skin. So I cut the tails off, I shaved the tails off the end of my brows, and so I need something to draw the tails on, and this just did not work. Now, I liked the really fine, thin tip for penciling in a little bit more towards the front of my brows. My brows look a little weird today. I put a little brow primer in them, and it just did not work at all. But you know, sometimes you just gotta try things. So I would use this mostly at the front portion of my brow to fill in a little bit, and I really liked the way that it worked for that, but I don't think I'll be repurchasing this particular one. It didn't impress me enough to make me want to repurchase it. I just want to try something else, but I do want to find something with a fine tip, because anything that's too thick, with my brows being so thin and sparse, I can't get any kind of like light definition, which is what I've been trying to go for, because I've been really trying to work on my brows. That's been one of my main goals for 2018, is to improve my brow game, and I feel like I'm definitely better than I was at the beginning of the year, but it's still a struggle, and I definitely need some sort of brow pencil. I have a couple that are much thicker, they just don't work the same way as something like this does. We are almost done. I have a couple of mascaras and a couple of green color correctors. Yes, I have 3 green color correctors that I finished. So I have one from Joe Fresh. This is one of those crayons, so you twist it up and then you can color correct where you need to. This was okay, but a little bit too light for me. I feel like I need a darker, slightly darker green. Like anything that's a little bit too pastel doesn't correct the redness like I need it to, because my redness tends to be very red and very bright. I have psoriasis on my forehead, and when it's active and it's angry, it's very red, and I need a good green color corrector to hide that. And the only thing that I found that really works for me is this YSL one, and I hate that because YSL is so expensive. This is the Touche Éclat Neutralizer. So this is a color corrector and it's just green. And I hate these pen style things. I hate them, the ones that you click to get the product out. I feel like there's a lot of waste with products like this because you can't control exactly how much product comes out. And once it comes out, there's no putting it back in the tube. You have to use it. So I felt like I was then color correcting spots that I really didn't need to color correct, just to use the product so it wouldn't go to waste. And I definitely feel like that's why I finished it much faster than I would have finished something else, like one with the doe foot applicator, like the Urban Decay Naked Skin one, which is what I currently have. It's just not a dark enough green. This was just the right shade of green that color corrected for me. And I really wish that it didn't work for me, because I keep thinking that I want to buy this, but I know this is something like $50 Canadian, and it's nutty for something that I would probably have to repurchase 6 times a year. It's just nuts. So I'm gonna hold off repurchasing this one. I'm gonna try and work through the Urban Decay one, hopefully find a way to make that work for me, or then maybe try something else. But so far, this is a thing that has worked the best for me. I also tried this one from Maybelline. This is the Master Camo, and it's a very similar thing. You twist it up and it's got the little foam pad. So it's very similar to the YSL one, and I liked the color of it. I just felt like it faded pretty fast and it didn't blend as well. I felt like it was a lot easier to see little patches of green, and it was really hard to get concealer or foundation to blend on top of it. So I also wish this one had worked for me, because this is a much better deal than the YSL one as well. But you just can't force products to work for you sometimes. So you can see how many things I've gone through, and I've gone through a few other green concealers before, and I just keep trying things out whenever I can find them, whenever I run out of something. I need a new crayon type now. I like to go back and forth depending on what my base products are. Sometimes I like the liquid correctors, and sometimes I like the more crayon style, especially for a more fuller coverage look. Then my base can handle a thicker product, and sometimes then the crayon will work better than the liquid if it's lighter. But I'm just struggling a little bit. But I also don't want to waste a ton of money trying stuff when I know one thing works for me. That's the sort of dilemma that I'm like, do I try something that's half the price of the YSL and hate it, or do I just cave in next time and buy the YSL knowing it works for me? That's my eternal makeup struggle. Anyway, I have two mascaras to finish off with. I have a little mini of the Roller Lash mascara from Benefit, which I really like. I like the little brush there, the curved brush. I feel like it really lengthens and separates my mascara, although Benefit's a little questionable, so I've kind of been staying away from Benefit a little bit lately as well. I don't know, there's some brands I just don't have patience for anymore. I also finished the Lash Paradise mascara from L'Oreal, and I really liked this mascara. I did not like it at first. So many people were raving about this mascara, and when I first used it, I was like, why are people raving about this mascara? And then I kept using it, and then I realized I really liked it because it was keeping my lashes really full and thick, and it was easy to remove the mascara once at the end of the day, which is something that I've struggled with sometimes with these more thicker mascara formulas, things that really coat each individual lash. Sometimes it's really hard to remove that at the end of the day, and I will struggle a little bit, and that's also probably why I go through so much micellar water. But I like the way that it separated my lashes, and it made my lashes look really good because during the daytime, just for work and stuff, I'm not wearing false lashes. I have occasionally worn false lashes to work, but it's such an ordeal. It's so high maintenance, and I much prefer just a really good mascara, and this one worked really well. So this is potentially something that I would go back to. I kind of want to try some things that I haven't tried before. I'm going through a lot of my little minis right now because I have so many of those. But I feel like trying a few things that are different, and I don't mean buying 7 different mascaras at one time, but just buying one new one and using that till it's gone and then trying something else, or maybe buying 2 at one time so I can compare them. I'm really into comparing and contrasting things, and this is why I just like makeup and playing with it, and also why I can't Project Pan that much, because I just have this compulsion to try things, and it's fun. It's fun, and I just need to be smart about it. There's no reason why I can't have 2 mascaras and use them till they're done. I don't need to have 20. That's really the big thing that I've learned from before, and one of the things that I've stopped doing as much of is hoarding things unnecessarily. Like, even if I'm shopping somewhere and I see a product I want to try, like a mascara, I know not to buy it right now because I won't be using it, because I already have a few things to finish. So the lessons are there. I just need to make sure that I'm conscious of them and I apply them and that I'm smart about it, and things will be okay. Anyway, that is all for me. Let me know if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. If I didn't touch on something that you wanted to know about any of these products that I finished, ask me in the comments. I will respond to you there. If you have any other questions, anything else on your mind that you want to talk to me about, feel free to do so. I also have my other contact information in my description box as well, in case you are not comfortable leaving a YouTube comment and you want to send me an email or message me on Snapchat or Instagram or whatever. I'm open to anything. So anyway, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today and letting me talk trash. I really enjoy Empties videos. My first YouTube video 5 years ago, yes, it was 5 years ago now, was in August, and it was an Empties video, and I really meant to do this in August, but time got away from me. So anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I really hope we get a chance to chat soon. Bye for now.